Today on the 10-12 podcast, we're recapping every game in Week 3 in the Big 12 with Andy Mitz, Jamie Steyer-Johnson, and our guest, Cody Nespor. That includes deeper looks at West Virginia's loss in the Backyard Brawl, Kansas's loss to UNLV, Cincinnati's win over Miami of Ohio, Kansas State over Arizona, and every other game. That's what's coming up on the 10-12 podcast today.
With Amex Platinum, you can enjoy access to dedicated card member entrances at select events because skipping the line makes you the star of game day. That's the powerful backing of American Express. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/withAmex. Card member entrance access not limited to Amex Platinum card.
What up, y'all? It's Joe Budden, here to talk about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to win real money while watching football. You can get up to 100 times your money.
Prize Picks will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code SPOTIFY. That's code SPOTIFY on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Welcome to the 10-12, the podcast that covers all 16 teams in the Big 12 Conference. We are the flagship show of the 10-12 Network. Find every show on the network at 1012network.com. And of course, we are partners with Sports Social, Europe's biggest sports podcast network. I'm your host, Phillip Slavin. Thank you for joining us on this Monday. Very excited for today. AP poll voter Cody Nespor will be joining us in the back half of the show. He joined us before the season started. So Cody is our guest today. Hopefully no one hates him enough to go in and change an iTunes review from a 5-star to a 1-star and complain about it. Fingers crossed for that one. If you do like the show, would love for you to leave us a 5-star rating and a positive review, especially on iTunes. If you're listening anywhere else, YouTube, like, subscribe, leave a comment, Spotify, leave us 5 stars, wherever you're listening. If there's an option for rating the show, we would appreciate a positive rating. It would be very helpful. Joining me for the first half of this show, as I do every week, he is a man currently without a team. He is the host of the Rock Chalk podcast, the Kansas show here in the 10-12 Network. He is Andy Mitz.
I never said I didn't have a team. I just said that there was no football this weekend.
Right. So
it just magically stopped happening. I don't know why.
A man without a team playing football. They've given up on the sport, apparently.
No, that's not true.
Is it time for the...
Considering I've already recorded our episode of the Rock Chalk podcast where we went through and it was less than fun talking about that game. Gosh. Thankfully, the Chiefs were able to avoid choking as well on this fine Sunday, and I could actually enjoy some football this weekend.
You and Charlie Hustle both celebrating that Kansas City Chiefs win. Also joining us, she is the vibe queen of the 10-12 Network. She is the voice of Drake soccer and volleyball, Iowa State women's basketball. She is known all over the place as JSJ, Jamie Steyer-Johnson.
The voice of a generation, perhaps some have said.
Soon to be the voice of all sports in the state of Iowa.
Yeah, we're well on our way. I can't believe that I'm getting the people hooked on my random asides to the point that I'm getting flack for not bringing Drake athletics into the equation on the 10-12.
That was amazing.
Podcast. I'm like, man, well, so the update is big day for women's soccer today. Got their first win of the season. They're 0-4-4 previously, had 4 ties, got over the hump today, right in time for Missouri Valley Conference play. So, and as we all know, in the smaller conferences, conference play is in fact all that matters. So they're rolling at the right time.
Better late than never, they say, right? Look, you got to keep Robert happy, okay? He's going to listen to this. He didn't stick around late enough for his shout-out on Thursday's Pick Pod, so we'll just drop the shout-out here for him. I know he'll appreciate that.
I would say he got everything up front. His shout-out, the Drake mention, like everything. Man.
I don't have much as far as memory goes. So if I'm gonna remember something, if something's gonna happen, it's coming right off the top, folks.
Jamie, if University of Iowa came to you and asked you to be the voice of one of their sports, would you do it?
See, this is the thing. I have had this conversation and they wouldn't. Like, that's the one place that just flat out wouldn't. So
Okay.
it's a non-issue. Like,
Perfect.
I'm unbiased enough in general that, like, I truly think pretty much anywhere else would be cool with it. Because especially in like my Big 12 coverage and stuff, I have a lot of respect for the other teams. I have a lot of love for them. So like, I'm cool with a lot of the coaching staff, like people on coaching staffs, the Big 12 stuff like that. But Iowa, I just don't think it would happen.
We need to get you on some UNI sport, but let's pick a random sport at UNI. Everybody can pitch what UNI sport should Jamie Steyer-Johnson become the voice of. You can hit us up on Twitter at 1012 Network. She is at JSTEYZ, and let her know what sport Jamie should try and be the voice of for UNI athletics, because that would be hilarious.
Round it out.
Do us a favor, help us reach new Big 12 fans looking for Big 12 content. Share this podcast, share the show, let everybody know. We are going to do what we try and do each week, which is get through the games in about 30 minutes, and then we will be joined by our guest. Now, we'll save a particular game for our guest who covers West Virginia. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, poke, poke. I think you know where we're going with that one. So, y'all ready to get this thing off the tracks?
I mean,
Was it
is
ever
it ever
on?
really? Yeah, was it ever really on the tracks? But yes.
Look, you know what? One wheel is still there. All right. Let's kick things off with Arizona State 31, Texas State 28. This team is fun. They win weird. They play weird games. Don't get into a weird, ugly, funny, awkward, I don't know what's going to happen game with Arizona State, because at this point I'm going to pick them to find a way to come out of it. This team plays exciting games. I think Thursday night was their best win on the road against a good Sun Belt team in Texas State. And considering what has happened to Wyoming and Mississippi State, I don't think it's that bold of a statement to say Texas State is their best win on the road or not. While the Arizona State defense didn't score for the first time this season, they did force 3 turnovers, including 2 key turnovers in the fourth quarter, a fumble that led to the game-winning field goal, and an interception on Texas State's following drive. Texas State outgained Arizona State and limited them to just 101 yards on the ground and 2.4 yards per carry, but it didn't matter. This team just find ways to win. Like, seriously, we see teams like this all the time. We know they can handle and survive in weird games and with in-game adversity. Like, no one's going to look at them and go, this is one of the best teams in the country. But do not get in a game where you give Arizona State the opportunity to get the win against you, because right now, I am going to trust them to do it, because that is basically what they've done the last 2 weeks. Last week, they survived. This past week, they found a way to make plays. That defense isn't going to necessarily stop everyone, but they like to force turnovers. They get key stops when they need it. I really like this Arizona State team. They are very, very, very Big 12.
Yeah, this is a team that you're going to love to root for unless they happen to be playing your team.
Or you're a member of their fan base.
Well, yes. Well, you know what, though? Like, given what they were expecting for this year, like, I think they're going to love rooting for this team this year, as long as it lasts, you know, with them being much, much better than expected. Like, yes, there's always the possibility that it could all come crashing down and they go exactly back to where they were expecting to be at the beginning of the year. But honestly, I think they've already gotten to the point where you can be happy with the way that this season has started so far. And anything from here is almost just gravy. Like, having been in that position as a David Beatty era and Charlie Weiss era Kansas fan, and one more person who I will not name on this podcast ever again. You know, like, this is the time that you enjoy it the most, because you have no idea if it's going to stick around. So just enjoy it while it's here.
There's something really impressive about, like, going through 3 quarters and being shot for shot, where, like, on the one hand, yeah, you want to be able to put an opponent away, but also when you're on the road too, to go and have it be 7-7 in the first quarter, 14-14 in the second quarter alone, obviously 21-21 after the second, 28-28 after the third, and then to come out on top. Like, it just shows a level of, I don't know,
Poise.
like, poise, and like being able to rise to a moment where, yeah, you might not be the best team out there, but to have that capability on the road is really impressive in its way.
The thing I can say about Arizona State this year is that if they're going to lose games, it's not going to be because they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. It's going to be because they just got beat, which happens.
And will happen, and that's okay. But again, Texas State, well-coached team. It's a good win. That's a good win. Arizona State's fun. Keep an eye on them through the rest of the season. UCF 35, TCU 34. This is a game UCF loses last season. Absolutely. TCU kind of dominated this game early, especially in the first half. Now, look, UCF had some missed field goals that maybe would have made it closer early, but TCU, from a scoring standpoint, really dominated this game. The Horned Frogs went up 28-7 early in the third and led 31-13 late in the third quarter. TCU had a chance to get this game but missed a 58-yard field goal wide right. He had the distance, but he didn't. It wasn't a line, which, again, it's a 58-yard field goal. Like, we can say you have a chance that could have gone through. I don't have a lot of high expectations for a 58-yard field goal winning you a game. UCF just wore down TCU's defense as this game went on. Like, they had TCU on their heels in the back half of this game. All the fourth quarter and the late third. Like, you could just see it. RJ Harvey was hitting him. This is the KJ Jefferson I thought we would see coming into the season. He's looked much better as opposed to that first half of game one, and really game one where he was atrocious. Now he's looking a lot better. RJ Harvey is looking like the best, most consistent running back in the Big 12. There may be other guys who have higher highs and have had big games. I think of Scatabo last week, but like RJ Harvey is just consistently playing well. This was a team we didn't know enough about with UCF because they hadn't played anybody. They ain't played nobody. They played New Hampshire and Sam Houston. They go on the road to TCU. They are down 31-13 late in the third quarter. Last year, UCF loses this game. I am very impressed by this win. I think this is a huge win for UCF. This has got to make them have a lot of confidence. And in a game where your field goal kicker missed 2 field goals and an extra point, you were able to find a way to come back on the road at TCU. And apparently some of the TCU fans were leaving this game early because they thought it was in the bag. Oh, fans. What are you doing? That is a no-no. No. No lead is really safe, but definitely 31-13, you don't leave early. You enjoy. I mean, I guess they're glad they left and didn't have to watch their team fall apart and collapse and lose this game. Yeah. Shout out to UCF. Huge win. Jamie's got her finger up. She wants to talk.
One guess on my sole takeaway. Anyone?
They had to get ready for the party afterwards?
No, something about
guys.
volleyball.
No, come on.
Okay, fine.
Come on. UCF had a great post-game celebration tweet. It was in the style of TCU, so it was weird and unhinged. It was hilarious. I loved it. I hope that every team does the same thing if they beat TCU, so that way, every time TCU plays a game, I get one way or the other. I love it.
I will be honest, though. UCF fans probably also agree. They don't have to imitate TCU for it to come off as weird and unhinged, because I mean, that's UCF in a nutshell, and I think that they embrace that. So
it's exactly the social media team that I would anticipate being plugged in enough to understand what makes TCU's posts really funny and actually execute one of their own that isn't just low-key embarrassing.
That's fair.
So definitely not something that's easy to do, but I enjoyed it a lot. It was very, very funny.
Yeah, this was a great turnaround in game for UCF, because Phillip, I can tell you right now, I was aware of some shenanigans that were headed your way about your UCF in the top 4 of the Big 12 pick when UCF was down as badly as they were in that game. The fact that they were able to get it turned around, and to be honest, I have not been impressed with KJ Jefferson at all this year. I think that this game, what he was able to do in the second half, at least rehabs that image to where I could see it now. Before I was just I'm wondering, he's going to be, decent, but can you put him up there in that upper echelon of Big 12 quarterbacks? And while I don't know I'm still right there yet, I can at least see why people would have that opinion of him coming into the year. and what he could potentially do. So I'll be interested to see where UCF takes it from here. I think there was enough worries early that like you can't let yourself get dominated that badly in the first half and expect to be able to come back so often. So we'll see how they're able to do that. Like they can't let that keep happening because TCU is a team that you could potentially do that against. I don't know if you can do that against most of the rest of the Big 12.
Sure. And again, I think it's tough when you ain't played nobody to then go on the road against what I still think is a good TCU squad and have that happen. Again, I want to shout out RJ Harvey. I think he's been the most consistent running back in the Big 12 so far this year. He's had at least 100 yards. He's had 100 yards every game, 180 against TCU, averaged 6.2 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, caught the 2-point conversion in this game. Impressive start to the year for RJ Harvey, one of the best running backs in the Big 12. Okay. Kansas State 31, Arizona 7. Congratulations to the Wildcats for winning this game. I'm just kidding, Scott. Arizona went up 7-0, and it was all Kansas State from there. This was an impressive performance from the Kansas State defense, and I'm going to give them absolute full props for doing what they did against Noah Fafita and Teteroa McMillan. McMillan still got his yards and got his receptions, but that was a very, very impressive performance, especially considering what we saw just the weekend prior to Tulane, where they let a freshman running back or quarterback light them up. They limited Teteroa. That was a fantastic performance. Congratulations to Arizona. You're now officially a Big 12 member after Kansas State scored a special teams touchdown on you. That is one of those things you have to check off on your bingo card. Kansas State has, this stat came up and was awesome. Kansas State has 62 kick or punt returns since 2005. It's the most of anybody in the FBS. That is fantastic. I want to touch on this later, but I think Arizona and Kansas have a similar problem right now from a quarterback situation. And our friend Parker Fleming kind of mentioned this, and I think he's onto something here. The changes at offensive coordinator have mattered. And the changes to offensive coordinator to quarterbacks who needed to continue to develop. Teteroa is still young. Jalen just hadn't played that many games. Like, these are 2 quarterbacks that need to continue to develop. The OC changes have had a huge impact. Shocker, coaching changes matter. Who would have thought that coaching changes would have an impact on quarterbacks? Last thought,
sounds like fake news to me, Phillip.
Last thought, Andy, and then I'll let you go. Justin Spears of the Tucson Star. Initial thoughts on Kansas State's environment. This isn't Pac-12 country anymore. The crowd at KSU is very engaging. Those days of playing in half-empty and quiet California stadiums, excluding USC, are long gone. People have been saying it on Twitter ever since it was announced they were coming for all this time. And now all these, you're seeing Arizona fans and media were like, no, this is legit. I saw another person mention about like Big 12 Twitter is just a whole nother level. And social media is a whole other level than Pac-12 was. I'm so glad other people are coming to realize the things that Big 12 fans have been saying for the past 3, 4, 5 years of, we are the most online fan bases in the country, and we love football, and we are going to be there. We're going to show up. This is not like the West Coast. This is not like the old Pac-12. That's part of why they died off in the way that they did. We're not going to deal with the whole Pac-12 realignment, stealing Mountain West team nonsense. I don't know when we get into that. I love it. 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 Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, looking at this game, and, I watched quite a bit of this game because I, for some reason, was not as distracted during this game as I thought I was going to be. I definitely agree with you that the Kansas State defense was absolutely phenomenal. I am wondering what this Kansas State offense is. Because all I heard all year long was, Avery Johnson's going to come in and going to be, that throwing quarterback that's going to, kind of take over. And he, low key, he's a fantastic running quarterback. I don't know yet what this passing offense looks like for Kansas State. That's the only question they have left, right? Is like, what is that pass? Like, when they get to a point where they're going to have to win a game by passing, what does Avery Johnson do for them in that? And look, Fafita did not have a great throwing night at all, but he was the leading, he had 268 yards, much more than Avery Johnson had. And I understand that they were, that Kansas State was up but I just was expecting to see more in terms of what he can do in passing game. And yes, I know K-State fans. Look, I have to give K-State fans something to complain about. But I am curious to kind of see where that's going to go. I kind of hope I kind of wish this was a Big 12 conference game, just because then we could have. I don't know. This feels like it mattered in the Big 12 conference race for whatever reason. But yeah, we will see as we get through Big 12 play, kind of how that develops. It's kind of still in a wait and see for me. I'm not saying that he's not going to be a great quarterback. I just want to see what he can do. Like, we all knew he could run. We all knew he was a great running quarterback. I'm curious to see how that's going to develop throughout the year, because I do think that Kansas State has a good defense. I don't know that they're going to have a defense that's going to perform that well week in and week out.
I still think he's good.
I think he's good.
I think he's still young, and there's
what
still
is the ceiling?
Development
I don't know.
that needs to happen. And I mean, at the moment, who's the quarterback coach? Matt Wells? Okay. Look, Kansas State is good. Arizona is a team with a new coaching staff, which was a big concern for them. Maybe it's just that Kansas State's the best team in the Big 12 and way underrated, and Arizona's going to look fine against just about everybody else they play. I don't know. We will see.
Completely possible still.
Yeah.
Honestly.
But Arizona also starts to feel, after the first 3 weeks of the season, like they might be a little bit volatile, where they're going to go out and blow out some teams, and they're going to go out and get their tails whipped like they did against Kansas State this week. Now, they've got a week off, and then I think it's Utah. We'll see. But this is going to be an interesting Arizona team moving forward for the rest of the season. All right. Is that, Scott, if that wasn't enough Kansas State praise and talk, let me know, and we'll add a correction.
I just want to be clear, because I know Scott's going to come after me on Twitter. I'm not saying that I think K-State's not a good team. Honestly, I still think they're probably top 2 in the Big 12 easily.
Do you want to say something nice about Dylan Edwards now? Because that's the latest thing that Kansas fans are coming after you. Is your
Wait, what?
The newest stuff on Twitter from Kansas State fans is we did our player preview stuff, and let's see, they're making fun of you for the Kansas prediction, but also, what was it?
that's
saying DJ
normal.
Giddens was just whatever, was not tier 1 running back, and Dylan was nothing. DJ Giddens was not tier 1.
I don't think I actually said those words specifically, but I can understand why they might have thought that was the gist of what I said. Regardless, I mean, look, we will see how good that running back room is for Kansas State at the end of the year. I think the point, though, is that Kansas State is, as I said at the beginning of the year, when I said that, I would put them at number 1 in my power rankings, like, they are a team that, for the most part, we know what they are. There are still a couple questions, just because every team in the Big 12 has questions, but I think they're probably the most consistent team that we have in the conference. The real question is going to be, can people, hit that ceiling ahead of them? And, from what we've seen so far in the Big 12, I don't think we can count on anybody hitting that ceiling other than maybe Iowa State, if they can continue to do what they've done. So, I would still say that Kansas State at this point has to be the favorite, if not one of, if not the favorite to win the Big 12 at this point, just based off what we've seen so far.
Okay.
Your teen requested a ride, but this time not from you. It's through their Uber teen account. You drive your teenager around, a lot, to their friend Jacob's house, their other friend Jake's house, to James's, to Jaden's, to Jalen's, to...
Mom? This is Jake's house, not Jacob's.
Now with an Uber teen account, your teen can request a ride under your supervision. They'll ride with a highly rated driver, and with live trip tracking, you'll follow along the whole ride to their friends' houses that all sound the same. Add your teen to your Uber account today. See app for details.
Bye, Mom.
Cincinnati 27, Miami of Ohio 16. There is one more occurrence of the battle for the victory bell that will be coming up in a couple of years. But otherwise, this rivalry game isn't on the schedule for a while, which is silly, especially when Cincinnati went out there and planted a flag at midfield of a MAC school that's, I'm going to use the air quotes because podcasting is a visual medium, not a rivalry, as I keep being told. That's why. It's two teams that don't like each other. That's the definition of just keep playing the game, stop being stupid. Props to Cincinnati. This game, 11-point win that wasn't as close as the final score really makes it feel. Evan Pryor had a great game in this one. Second half, a lot of rushing yards for Cincinnati. Corey Kiner had a really good game. Like, this was as dominant as 11-point win can be. Cincinnati held Miami of Ohio to 24 yards on the ground, which is wild. Absolutely wild. And shout out to Cincinnati defensive lineman Eric Phillips, who had a couple of really big sacks in this game. That's a good game for Cincinnati. It was a big one, getting this win, especially after the upset loss last year. This was definitely one, if you're Scott Satterfield and want to keep your job past this year, you needed to get. This was a good win. Props to Cincinnati on this one.
I say my only comment here is that Cincinnati and Miami, Ohio is a rivalry in the same way that like West Virginia Marshall is a rivalry, right? Those that want it to be a rivalry will argue about it till it's blue in the face, and everyone else is just kind of like, okay, whatever.
Okay.
As someone who hears a lot about a rivalry being beneficial only to one party and just a whole lot of what
or like
sobbing and crying, like just rivalries are fun. Embrace it.
Or like Wichita State fans, with Kansas, like they want it to be a rivalry.
You can't pick and choose. Like either you don't actually care that much about it, or your team goes and plants a flag. It can't be both.
All right. For the sake of time, we're going to run through a few of these outcomes. Texas Tech 66, North Texas 21. The Red Raiders exercised some demons in this one. At the half, North Texas had 7 points. Texas Tech had scored 7 touchdowns. That's the game. Texas Tech fans finally saw Micah Hudson on the field in the second half, which made them very happy. Probably even happier than blowing out North Texas. Oklahoma State 45, Tulsa 10. Tulsa didn't score till the fourth quarter against reserves. This was a blowout. Alan Bowman there for 396 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Sat the fourth quarter. Oklahoma State still needs to fix their run blocking, but it's not even really run blocking. It's teams really are loading the box, and LSU just doesn't seem to have a plan other than like, fine. Tulsa, late in the second quarter, like right before halftime, when they are down huge, is still putting an extra man in the box to stop Ollie Gordon. Meanwhile, Alan Bowman is just picking them apart. But sure, cool, keep doing that. Colorado 28, Colorado State 9. Buffs forced 4 second-half turnovers and pulled away in a game that was 3-0 Colorado State until 5:51 left in the second quarter. Score says it was a dominant win. I'm not sure that's really the case, given forcing 4 turnovers and a missed field goal is necessarily something that you're going to repeat on a weekly basis. However, it was a much-needed win for Colorado. Helped take the attention off the off-the-field stuff for at least a week, although Shedeur Sanders still didn't want to shake the hand of the quarterback for Colorado State after the game because the opposing quarterback said some stuff and then they won and, blah, 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 blah. Can never just focus on the win. We got to deal with all this other nonsense. This is what you asked for. You get the attention. Great. Andy, you got a few?
I sure do. Houston 33, Rice 7. Houston gets their first win of the year. Claims the Bayou Bucket. It's their first win of the Willie Fritz era. It is a crosstown rivalry. And hey, they did not lose to their food. So that is an absolutely fantastic thing for them. They did not leave any doubt in this one, getting out to an early lead and not giving Rice any kind of opportunity. Donovan Smith throwing for 142 yards and a touchdown and getting 2 touchdowns on the ground. BYU 34, Wyoming 14. BYU got off to a rough start, interception on the first drive. But after that, they, controlled this one, going up 14-0, never trailing. Jake Retzlaff bouncing back from throwing that pick early in the game, had a 3-touchdown day, also a 100-yard kickoff return to start the second half, put them up. Well, actually, they were, 24-7 at the time, and they didn't look back. So, and then finally, Utah 38, Utah State 21. This one got a little dicey towards the end as Utah State looked like they potentially were going to tie it late in the game. Utah getting down 14-3 in the second quarter, but reserve quarterback Isaac Wilson and running back Micah Bernard finally got everything going, and they outscored Utah State 35-7 the rest of the way. Again, this one, though, was a lot closer later in the fourth quarter than it should have been. Granted, that kind of happens when you have an injury to Cam Rising that you are trying to deal with. Baylor transfer Caleb Lohner caught a touchdown pass in the second quarter, and he has 2 career catches. Both of those are touchdowns, which is one fantastic stat. Phillip, thank you for supplying that.
Every once in a while, I find some good stuff. Baylor, speaking of them, 31, Air Force 3. A close one at the half with Baylor up just 3 points, in large part due to 3 fumbles. Woof. But they pulled away. It looks like we have a quarterback controversy in Waco. DeQuan Finn missed the game due to a shoulder injury to his throwing arm. No information about as far as how long he will be out or when he'll be back. Sawyer Robertson had a solid outing, 18 for 24 for 248 yards. Also had a rushing touchdown. Seriously, I don't know how long DeQuan Finn will be out, and when he's back, we'll see how Sawyer continues to perform. But if Baylor's winning with him, it would be hard to bench him for DeQuan Finn, no matter how much we like DeQuan Finn. Also, shout out to Eric Kelly TV on Twitter for this little bit. Baylor is now the first non-service academy to hold Air Force without a touchdown since San Diego State in 2003, and the first non-service academy to outrush Air Force since 2022. Those are some fun facts when it comes to the military academy. Andy.
What's up?
Kansas 20, UNLV 23. For the second straight week, Kansas blows a second half lead. And Jalen Daniels just doesn't look like the Jalen Daniels that we all were expecting and hoping for and promised. It has not been good. The second halves have been bad. And according to everyone who used to have Brett Grimes, specifically Baylor, as an offense coordinator, I see a lot of should have asked us about that. We could have told you that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Grimes and Daniels have not really meshed very well yet at this point. Lance Leipold said afterwards that, hey, this is just as much on the coaching staff as it is on Jalen Daniels. It's not like Jalen Daniels is not doing, everything you expect from him in practice, or not paying attention, or not putting in the work. It's just not coming together. And, he's played a total of now 6 games in the last basically 2 calendar years. It's kind of hard to, no matter what you try to do in practice, it's hard to replicate the kind of looks that you're going to get, and honestly not build into those tendencies that you already see from all the guys, especially since there's not been a ton of turnover in the defensive secondary for the Jayhawks. So, you're going up against Kobe Bryant and Melo Dotson in practice, and guys that you kind of know the tendency of, and you can make things look good. I think the real issue here, Jess, is that Jalen Daniels needs more reps. He needs to get to a point where he has that confidence again. And unfortunately, there's not much you can do to jumpstart that process. They have to figure out what they can do as a team to kind of mitigate the impact of that. But the thing that everyone was calling for of, hey, hand the ball off to Devin Neal because he can do his thing and he can, pace that offense. UNLV was keying on him the entire second half. The third quarter, he had a total of 10 rushing yards. Even though they weren't necessarily doing anything, completely different. Like, they weren't blowing up blocks or anything like that. They just knew where to go to try to stop him. It doesn't help that Daniel Highshaw was out with a quad injury / flu-like symptoms in this particular game. But look, this Kansas offense is struggling horribly. The Kansas defense has been absolutely phenomenal, much, much better than I think anybody expected them to be this year. The question is going to be how long they can keep that up. The fact that they were, you have 2 games now where the defense could have won it for you if the offense had not committed so many ridiculous turnovers, basically tells you that this has completely flipped the script from what we were expecting as Kansas fans. We'll have to see how long this goes. Again, Kansas is still talented enough offensively that they could get it turned around, but when the issue is inside your quarterback's head, got to find a way to get that sorted out, or you're not going anywhere with that offense. Hopefully the defense can keep them close enough, long enough that they can, get that turnaround, and it can kind of build, and eventually they'll be able to do what they need to do. Thankfully, all of this happened in non-conference. So, we're going into conference play, going up against a West Virginia team to start that is also dealing with some of their own issues. And so we'll kind of see if they can get off the schneid and really get back to what they need to be doing.
One thing you need to be doing is going to charliehustle.com and shopping right now. If you are a Kansas or Kansas State fan, they dropped some player tees. They've got Avery Johnson. They've got Jalen Daniels. They've got Luke Grimm. They've got Devin Neal. They've got DJ Giddens. They've got some fantastic player t-shirts. Also, if you never saw when they dropped the hand gesture stuff, the Eat 'em Up Cougs, Eat 'em Up Cats. I said Cougs. I'm scrolling. There's the Houston's right next to it. Forgive me.
When there's so much great stuff, it is so easy to get it all mixed up.
Oh, yeah.
About it all at once.
Fear the Frog. They've got a Forks up. They've got Guns up. They've got so much good stuff. As long as you're a Big 12 fan, there is something for you at charliehustle.com because they've got gear for all 16 teams. I'm going to get ripped apart for the eat 'em up goose, whatever. So many words have to flow out of my mouth as quickly as possible. It's fine. I love you all, and you all know that. Okay. I can't wait for the 1-star review if he thought. Anyways, go to charliehustle.com. Use the promo code 101215, TEN1215. Get 15% off all non-sale items. If stuff's on sale, just go ahead and buy it. If it's not on sale, use the promo code 101215, TEN1215 at checkout. Get 15% off all non-sale items on your order. They've got so much good Big 12 stuff. You need to go check it all out. Be the best dressed fan this season, the one that all your friends, other fans, people who are around you will envy. And you're going to be as comfortable as possible, no matter if your team wins or loses. So, charliehustle.com. Use that promo code 101215, 15% off all non-sale items. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh.
Earning your degree online doesn't mean you have to go about it alone. At Capella University, we're here to support you when you're ready. From enrollment counselors who get to know you and your goals, to academic coaches who can help you form a plan to stay on track. We care about your success and are dedicated to helping you pursue your goals. Going back to school is a big step, but having support at every step of your academic journey can make a big difference. Imagine your future differently at capella.edu.
JSJ? Peace
Visual
out.
medium. Given the peace sign.
Always good.
Goodbye, friends.
We will talk to Jay.
I wish I had more interesting anecdotes, but obviously my in-depth football analysis had to wait since my team had a bye week. Wait, no, okay, I have one. So today, during my soccer match, I think that I officially became a soccer broadcaster because I gave a very simple yes, but decent observation on where the offensive opportunities were for Drake. And not 5 minutes later, they scored in exactly the way that I anticipated. And so we're here, folks. We've arrived.
Jamie has officially spread her soccer wings.
Yeah, I get it.
Bravo. That's awesome.
All right, that's it. Bye.
Bye, Jamie. Jamie is out, but that means that our guest is now joining us. Cody Nespor of the Dominion Post. Joining us now. Cody joined us before the season as well because this is his first year as an AP poll voter, and so we are excited to get him on to talk about his votes this week, as well as a few other things, including the Backyard Brawl. We saved it just for you, Cody. It seemed like it was a good idea to do so. Cody, welcome back to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
I'm just glad that I'm not the only one that gets to suffer about the team that they follow, on this podcast. So,
if you're a West Virginia fan or not, I suggest going and listening to the latest Raspy Voice Kids podcast episode.
It was fantastic.
That's peak Raspy Voice Kids. Absolutely peak content. All right. Let's do this. West Virginia 34, Pitt 38. Absolutely wild backyard brawl, back and forth, interceptions, block punts, return for touchdowns. West Virginia's defense held Pitt's running backs to 21 combined yards. The running backs, the quarterback had more. So you limited your opponent's running backs to 21 yards. It wasn't enough. You had a 10-point lead with 4:56 left in the game, and yet you lost. This is a tough loss for Neil. A really, really, really tough loss for Neil. And I know we want to throw all the blame at him, and I think he deserves quite a bit. I do want to say this. I watched the second half of this game. Eli Holstein, the quarterback for Pitt, lowercase p Pitt, found MJ's magic juice, magic sauce, whatever he got into and drank before he came out on the end of that game in that fourth quarter. He killed Pitt, and he made the throw to the end zone, like triple coverage, right in the basket, perfect throw. The elusive escape from like 8 defenders on top of him later on. Like he just made plays and made plays and made plays that I don't think were necessarily because of poor defensive play, poor defensive coaching. He just found a way. Sometimes good offensive execution will beat great defense. It just happens. And I kind of think that's what happened a bit at the end of this game. That doesn't mean that we don't get to be mad at Neil. That doesn't mean that West Virginia doesn't have to be sad today. That is a really, really tough loss. Cody, as someone who covers West Virginia, what were your thoughts on the Backyard Brawl loss for West Virginia on Saturday?
Yeah, I think this is the toughest loss for Neil in 6 years. To be up 10 with 5 minutes and lose to your biggest rival when you really needed the win, and to lose in the way that they did, I think it's his worst loss here. And I would, so Holstein played great, right? There's no denying that. He made the throws. I would disagree with you that it wasn't bad defense, because if you watch all 3 of West Virginia's games, every quarterback they've played has done that. Every quarterback has been able to scramble and convert third downs, and every quarterback has had open looks down the field and hit. I mean, even Albany, hit big plays and the quarterback scrambled and they couldn't stop him. And so it's to me, it was not, oh my gosh, Eli Holstein's going Superman mode. It was, oh, the defense is doing this again. For the 3rd week in a row, these issues are still here. They have not been fixed. But Holstein did play great, but it's just not, you're giving them some leeway, but it wasn't good defense. It has not been good defense. Like, even if you watch the first half of Albany, it's like dudes are wide open, the quarterback's scrambling around. Like, it's the FCS team. You should, this shouldn't be happening. And so those last 2 pit drives, it was everything we've already seen in the season happening again. It wasn't Holstein elevating to another level. It was just, miserable. It's the pass defense has been miserable for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this game, right? Because I gotta admit, I got to that last 5 minutes and I'm like, okay, West Virginia scored. This is over. I stopped paying attention because I was not expecting that kind of collapse. But the entire game was just kind of like, everything seemed like there were so many things to feel positive about, but it always kind of felt like it just didn't quite come together, right? Like you had the interception that Garrett Green threw, and that you had the punt block for a touchdown for Pitt. Like, there was just so many random and weird things that, if that was the one thing that happened, you'd be like, okay, look, fluke, weird things happen. But when you have so many different weird things that just seem uncharacteristic, all happening over and over again for the first 3 weeks of a season, after the first few years that we had of Neil Brown, like last year, or I guess coming into the year, there was a lot of concern. It's like, hey, was last year schedule driven and kind of luck driven, and West Virginia overperformed what you expected, or was that the turnaround? It feels more and more every single week like, okay, they got really lucky last year. Everything kind of came together perfectly for them to look like they were improving. And I'm not sure that they're necessarily improving. I think that they have more talent now than they had last year. It feels like they should be playing a lot better than they were last year, but it's just not coming together on the field. There's way too many mistakes that seem to be discipline mistakes, that seem to be just guys not doing the thing that they need to do. And if it was one guy doing it, or, a couple guys doing it, but that's your most talented player, you have to leave them on the field, okay, fine. Like, that's an execution issue. But the fact that it's so many different guys in so many different facets of the game, having so many different issues, makes me feel like you have to put the blame at Neil Brown's feet. And you're like, I don't think that Garrett Green's a bad quarterback. I think he's a great quarterback that made a couple mistakes. I don't feel like the, offensive lineman or anyone else who had those penalties doesn't feel like they're bad players. It feels like there's some sort of discipline issue going on. There's something happening with the culture of the team right now that isn't allowing them to be as successful as they should be.
Yeah, I think offensively it's a lot of the same as last year, just without the explosive plays. Like, if they had the 55-yard touchdown to Hudson Clement called back. And like that's the kind of plays we saw last year that they just really haven't had so far. But that they're still running the ball well. It's just and Green's still scrambling well. It's just those long down the field throws haven't been there. Um, and I don't know if it's a culture thing. It's a lot of the same guys. I think really it's you look at what they did on defense. They brought in 6 transfers in the secondary, and none of them have hit. I mean, you buy 6 lotto tickets and they all bust, really. And it's like now we're 3 weeks in, and it's like, oh, okay, like there's nobody else here to even throw out there. It's like, we're getting down to redshirt and true freshmen, which is not the point you want to be at 3 weeks into the year, looking at the, the back row of the position meeting, like, oh, who else could we put in there? But the team is very similar to last year. Especially on offense, it's like they're not hitting the big throws, but they're still doing a lot of the same stuff, and a lot of it is still working. As well as last year, I'd say.
We can wrap up on this. Chris Anderson of Ear Sports shared a really good stat on his podcast. In the last 3 seasons, West Virginia has blown 3 games where their win probability was over 94% at some point in the game. That includes Saturday. If you add the Pitt game 2 years ago, West Virginia had an 89% win probability at one point. So that's 4 games in the last 3 years where Pitt had a win probability of 89% in the game and lost. It's not great.
Yeah. So one of those would be the Houston game last year.
Yep.
Which, Hail Mary is
still lost.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
so I'm trying to think what the other one would be.
Not only that, but like the way that game went, the entire thing, it felt very similar to this one, right? And that there was a ton of like death by 1,000 paper cuts type of thing. And then you talk about that Hail Mary at the end, but there was enough that happened during that game that you're just like, it shouldn't have even been that close. Like a Hail Mary shouldn't have been enough to win the game at that point.
I remember that game. West Virginia's defense did not force an incompletion in the second half. He was perfect through the air, and then of course the Hail Mary wasn't even incomplete, right? The cherry on top.
Nope. West Virginia fans. I feel it's
I can empathize very, very keenly with West Virginia fans right now.
Okay. So let's move on. I think we spent enough time on West Virginia. Cody, as we mentioned, you are an AP poll voter. The AP poll will come out on Monday. I don't know if you're allowed to tell us how you voted already. This drops Monday morning, but I'm curious at this point, who from the Big 12 do you have ranked in your top 25 and where?
I actually think the poll is out
today.
Yeah,
it does come out today.
Yeah.
The football poll comes out on Sundays.
It's a very busy weekend. I know. It's a busy weekend.
Except for the first week, because we have a Sunday game usually in that first week.
Okay, yours are, so I am staring at yours right now that are accurate. Y'all, just bear with me. I'm just going to mention I have 3 small kids, but y'all know that. You have Utah 12, Kansas State 13, Oklahoma State 14. Those are the only Big 12 teams that you currently have ranked. I do like that you have UNLV at number 25. Good on you. That's fantastic. Sorry, Andy.
No.
You've got
absolutely deserved.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, no, they should be ranked, and I appreciate that they are, and I appreciate you having them there.
They were getting votes before the week. Like, you felt like they should, like, whoever won that game between Kansas and UNLV was going to get into the rankings. It's definitely been an interesting beginning of the year.
It's funny to me to continue to see Utah, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State grouped together in the way that they are. It feels, and not you specifically, but it feels a little bit like, well, we don't really know, so we're just going to keep these guys together. We don't feel like any of them are top 10 teams, but they're all right there. We're just going to kind of cram them all in the same spot together like they're all one thing. I'm curious your thoughts on those three and why you have them in the order that you do, and kind of like how much to you separates those three at the top.
Yeah. How much separates them? Basically nothing, which is why they're right in a row. No, I was really impressed with Utah. Without Rising. They played really poorly without him last year. I thought they were like, I don't know, Utah State's not, amazing, but I thought they didn't look terrible, and they did pull away late. Really, really impressed with Kansas State was that Friday? Really impressed with them. Really took it to Arizona. Just kind of dominated that game. I really appreciate Avery Johnson. I love it when a quarterback has limits in his skill set, and he's able to really work around them. And I think he does that as well as anybody this year, at least so far. So I was really impressed with him and really impressed with them. And then Oklahoma State, I wasn't a big Alan Bowman guy coming into the year. To me, he was just kind of like, he's one of these really, super senior portal guys. It's a lot of them, they end up being like baseline all right. I think he's been really good. I think he's been a lot better than I thought, and it's made Oklahoma State, or it will make Oklahoma State a lot better than I thought they were going to be capable of being. Because like you mentioned, if you could just stack the box on him and stop Ollie Gordon, you thought you would be fine. But if Bowman's going to play as well as he has, that's not going to work. And then, maybe Ollie Gordon starts to go off again. But yeah, all three of those, really impressed with them this week. And really all three, this week, I think learned more about them that impressed me even more than they already had. I would say, Iowa State, I struggled keeping off. I wish they had played this week just so I could have seen them again. But they would be like my number 26 team probably. And then Arizona, they probably would have, if it was a top 30, I probably would have had them on my ballot, but just, not super, didn't super like what they did. Really disappointed in that game.
I like the comments you made of you feel like you learned a lot about them this week. And it's a third data point, right? We have 3 data points, and I realize that's a quarter of the season and it takes that long, but you need a good 3 data points to finally start to feel like you have an idea of what teams are going to be able to do and what they are. And I do feel that each one is a very unique situation, right? Like Kansas State blows out a team people had a lot of expectations for in Arizona. Oklahoma State goes on the road in what is a rivalry game, and Ollie Gordon the running game for Oklahoma State continues to struggle, and Alan Bowman looks like someone's found the fountain of youth for him. And Utah, without Cam Rising, like they got down, but they still found a way to come back against, albeit a bad Utah State team. But all 3 teams did something different that made you kind of feel better about all 3 of them for the rest of the season. The next 2 weeks, we'll talk about week 3 here in a minute. Next 2 weeks should be really interesting because we get OSU, Utah, and then we get Oklahoma State, Kansas State. So, I feel like some of this is going to work itself out over the next couple of weeks with some of those matchups ahead of us. As of now, as we sit here, I had to say undefeated, not 3-0, because Iowa State took off week 3, which I can't stand final weeks this early in the season. It's too early. It's too early. We have 7 teams who are thus far undefeated, 6-3-0 in UCF, Kansas State, Utah, Arizona State, BYU, and Oklahoma State, and Iowa State at 2-0. UCF, of course, stopped the count. They're 1-0. They're the sole lead in first place at the Big 12. So if you just want to take that snapshot, they can enjoy it for at least a week, if not longer. I'm curious from the 2 of you, and I'll give my thoughts as well. Who do you feel at this point is the best undefeated team in the Big 12?
Real quick, I want to say Arizona State. I've been really impressed with them. Which obviously I'm grading them on a different curve than the other undefeated teams. But really impressed with them. They've been kind of a fun watch, and it's fun that they're undefeated. Best, I hate to cop out, but Utah with Cam Rising, I think is the best. Utah, if they don't have him, then I think Kansas State feels like the better team right now.
Yeah, I was to say, like, when I think of power ranking teams, right? It's like if you were to take these teams and pit them against each other today, who would win? And for me, it's Kansas State or Oklahoma State have to be up at the top kind of by themselves right now. Just based off of what we've seen and the fact that they're not dealing with major injuries on their team. Right. And then I would probably go Iowa State third, kind of drop them just because of Bacon being injured from the linebacking core. And while they seem to have done fairly well against Iowa, after recovering from that, you do wonder kind of long-term what that's going to look like. And then Utah at this point, like, yes, I understand they are without Cam Rising, but I think that the ceiling for Utah without Cam Rising is much lower than it is with him. So, kind of where we're at right now, I think it's those four. And then you go from there and, you could throw Arizona State, BYU, and UCF just from what we've seen so far, kind of in a hat at this point. I think BYU probably at the lowest end of that. UCF probably comes out above them, like above the other two. And Arizona State has been a pleasant surprise, like you said, but you kind of still have to wonder at this point.
Yeah, I kind of like, UCF. I've really kind of liked, it wasn't a dominating win over TCU, but they're another team that's been kind of a fun watch for 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, look, like Arizona State and BYU are the fun stories, right? You've got two teams that people had low expectations for who are sitting here at 3-0, and we can nitpick the opponents. That's fine. I think BYU going on the road to win at SMU, I think Arizona State going on the road to win at Texas State are good wins. Like there is some validity based off those wins to these teams being 3-0. Like they both played Wyoming, they both blew Wyoming out. Wyoming's bad. They both have beaten an FCS team, and then they've both beaten I know SMU is a P4 team. I'm using big time air quotes, but like they've both beaten what I think is equally good teams out of the state of Texas on the road. So it's fun, and you have to feel good for both programs that there is significantly higher ceilings on this season than maybe you thought coming into the year. I'm really high on Iowa State at this point. I wish they'd have played this week as well. Cody, you said it. Like, I wish I had a little bit more information on them. Not that I think Arkansas State's going to give us a ton of information, but I would still like to have seen one more game this week. We'll get Arkansas State this coming week. With Utah, I think at this point I'm going to give the nod to Kansas State because of the win over Arizona. And because I don't know how, like, Cam Rising's injury was to his throwing hand. They sat him this week. Utah State got shut out by USC the week prior. And yes, USC's defense is better this year. It's still USC's defense. And then they come in and they're at home. It's a whole other thing. It's not a good Utah State team. Their coach got fired like 2 months before the season started. He gave up 21 points. You got down early. Cam Rising's not playing defense for you. I was a little disappointed in Utah's defense this weekend. And the same thing against Baylor. Like, yeah, Baylor never really scared Utah, but you started giving up points later in the second half to Baylor. Like, the defense is good. I don't know if the defense is, and maybe it's unfair, as good as I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to ding Utah a little bit.
It's good, but it's not great. And I think a lot of people thought Utah could have a great defense this year.
Right. It'll be really interesting to see what Cam Rising looks like this week if he plays. And look, they're not going to tell us if he's playing or not until kickoff on Saturday. So just prepare yourselves for that mentally and emotionally. I would go with Kansas State right now. I would. Everyone's got flaws. Everyone's got issues. Everyone's got stuff to work out. But I do think, buckle up, folks, because I think this is going to be, we thought this would be a fun Big 12 season. Man, it's really, really gearing up to be that way.
I can guarantee right now that the way that the conference looks right now is going to be vastly different than how it actually ends up.
What? The Big 12 is the hardest conference to predict in the country of the power conferences? No, sir. No way. That is a hot Turn the heat down.
I know. I'm sorry.
Okay, turn it down. All right. Let's look ahead to week 4. Man, week 4. It's already week 4. Oh, we got a loaded weekend because we got it's conference play time now, folks. We got conference play underway. Still a couple of non-cons this weekend. There's one last non-conference when UCF and Florida face off here in a few weeks. But we're going to run through the list, and then I want from you the must-watch game for you from the Big 12. Of course, the rule is you can't pick your team. So, Cody, that means you can't pick West Virginia. Andy, you can't pick Kansas. So you guys can't pick the same game.
Right.
So it's the same. They're playing each other.
I don't think either of us were going to pick that game, by the way. So,
Unlikely. Let's run through this list. We got 11 a.m. FS1 Houston on the road at Cincinnati and hold AAC. I'm using the air quotes rivalry because it's fun to say that. Also at 11 a.m. on ESPN2, West Virginia hosting Kansas. Should be an interesting game. 1 o'clock. These are all Central Time, God's time, by the way. You should all know this, but every podcast is someone's first. Iowa State hosting Arkansas State on ESPN+. 2:30, we get Texas Tech hosting Arizona State on FS1. That's a sneaky, interesting game. 3 o'clock, Fox, Oklahoma State hosting Utah, a top 15 battle. 4 p.m. on the CW, TCU on the road at SMU for that skillet rivalry. 7 o'clock on Fox, Colorado hosting Baylor, and then at 9:30 on ESPN, that's 9:30 Central Time. Drink your coffee light, folks. BYU hosting Kansas State. Cody, as the guest, I'll let you go first. What's your must-watch game?
So, must-watch. I'm going to look at it as you must watch this because you will be entertained.
I like that.
I think Tech and Arizona State. That's going to be a fun game.
I agree. I like that pick. Yes.
That's like, I want to see, 80 points scored kind of game.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to buy what North Texas failed to do against Texas Tech. So some evidence that Texas Tech have fixed their defensive woes. I love that pick. That's a great, I think that's a fun game. That's got weird all over it. I mean, just weird as all get out.
It's funny because I think the one that is the quote unquote obvious one is Utah, Oklahoma State, just because it's both ranked teams. But I'm also going to go kind of the weird route because last year we saw it. Night games in Provo are very weird. Kansas State going to BYU. Like, I honestly, that's the one that I want to watch. One, because I just love watching football really late at night anyway. But also just, we're either going to be fairly impressed with Kansas State because they're going to be able to just completely, destroy BYU in a weird stadium. BYU did some really weird things last year at home. And so that, or they're going to do something like that. And we're going to wonder like, hey, wait, maybe this BYU team is a lot better than we thought they were. Even if they lose this game, there is the potential for, us to look at this game as a, hey, maybe BYU either just got some weird magic again at, night game in Provo, or they might actually be better than people thought they were going to be this year. It's a very intriguing game because there are so many different ways that it could go, and it could tell us so many different things this early in the season.
Kansas State could win by a little. Kansas State could win by a medium amount. Kansas State could win. I'm sorry, I'm just kidding.
Look, I would not be shocked if Kansas State won by 50, but I also would not be shocked if they had to throw a last-minute touchdown that crossed the goal line with zeros to win the game.
I love how you just like to find ways to make Kansas State fans mad. No, look, it's a battle of two undefeateds. That's a game to keep an eye on. It is in Provo. It is late at night. Like, it's either going to be a blowout or it's going to get real weird. I can't pick Houston or Oklahoma State, Utah. So I won't, and that's fine. Even though I think it is obviously the game day going to Norman for OU Tennessee. Because
right, like we don't need to say Utah Oklahoma State because everybody knows that that's the game that they need to watch.
Yeah.
I will also do something different. I will take the Iron Skillet because this is the last time this game is on the schedule for these two teams in Dallas for a while. They play one more time in Fort Worth next year. Another rivalry that's not on the schedule moving forward. We're seeing all this stuff with non-con stuff. I'm getting real burnt out on it. Just play the stinking game. Again, it's like we don't like them, they don't like us. That's the whole point of a rivalry. That's the whole point. You're not supposed to like each other. It's not called a friendlery. It's a rivalry. Just hate each other and play these football games so we can all enjoy it. So I love rivalry games. I love non-con rivalry games. This should be interesting. How does TCU look? How do they bounce back? BYU already went to SMU and won. TCU, you're not going to let BYU out, do you? Are you? Because that would give BYU some bragging rights to be like, well, we were able to do it. How come you couldn't do it? They're not even our rival. So I am always a fan of this game. I get TCU fans who are like, we don't like this game. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And I like it in part because you guys hate it, which is the point of a rivalry game. I don't know why. I don't know. Anyways, it's a fun weekend. Baylor at Colorado should tell us a lot about both of those teams. That's also got coach seat gets hotter game because they're not going to fire Dion. He's probably gone at the end of the year anyways. He's going to follow his son because the only thing he does is coach his son. But it's still an intriguing game. West Virginia, Kansas, two teams that really need a win, like to feel better. But Neil really needs a win at home. Really needs a win at home. It's an intriguing weekend. I understand there's one ranked on ranked, air quotes, marquee matchup, but it's an intriguing weekend. It really is. So this has been fun as always. Cody, thank you so much for hopping in with us. Loved your thoughts on West Virginia. How's voting on the AP poll going? How you feeling about that so far? Just a few weeks in.
It gets easier every week because there's less guesswork. It is also fun because it forces me to watch more games. Because last year if I missed a game, I'd just be like, whatever. But now it's Sunday morning, I wake up and I'm excited and I'm like what did I this morning? I'm like, oh, I gotta watch the clips from UNLV or I just how did Tennessee look? So that part's a lot of fun for me. It's probably fun because I'm not really busy on Sundays. So if I had 3 small kids, it wouldn't be as fun. But no, it's a ton of fun. It gets easier every week. The last 5 spots are always the most hectic, and it's the most fun to go through 20 teams and see who deserves it.
I like that you have OU 21st. Good job there. You still have Boston College ranked. All right. Illinois, okay, yeah, man. Illinois and UNLV, you got both of the teams to beat Kansas.
I was to say, look, Kansas lost to 2 ranked teams. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Well, I give UNLV technically has 2 power wins because they beat Houston.
Yeah.
So it's I had to get a group of 5. Well, I don't know. I got to get a second group of 5 on there.
Look, UNLV has a decent shot of being the automatic berth to the college football playoff from the group of 5.
It's going to be really funny when the G5 rep isn't Boise State or an AAC team. It's someone from the MAC or non-Boise Mountain West. It will be somehow it's
going to be whoever's not going to the Pac-12. Yeah,
straight into my veins. It's going to be UNLV, Northern Illinois, or Texas State, or insert other random team who's undefeated we haven't even talked about.
Toledo put the smack on Mississippi State.
Maybe Jason Candle will finally get a P5 job because it's ridiculous that nobody seems to want to hire. But sure, go get another SEC coordinator. That's fine. That's cool. Cody, where can everybody check out the work you do, man?
Yeah, so on Twitter at Cody Nespor and then DominionPost.com.
Of course, you can listen to Andy on the Rock Chalk podcast. The latest episode in the can. Is it out, Andy, or is it dropping Monday?
It's gonna drop Monday morning. I thought I was gonna get it out today, and I just was too depressed to go back and listen to it again. So
you listen to your podcast before?
I have to go edit it, especially when I said at the end of the podcast that the second half of my podcast had technical difficulties, just like the Kansas offense. So I unfortunately have to go back and listen to it in order to actually fix those problems and get the episode to come out. So.
You heard it first. Jalen Daniels is Andy's producer.
No,
you can find every show in the network at 1012network.com. Go follow Cody. Go follow Andy. Check out the Rock Chalk podcast. Check out every show. We'll be back on Thursday for picks for this week, and hopefully we'll have a picks episode that's not an hour or 45 minutes long because we won't have 16 games to pick.
Thank goodness.
Like 9.
Look, I listened to that on the way to the Kansas game, and it was fantastic to have that much content to listen to. But it was also like, oh my gosh, we've gone so far into the deep end that I feel bad for them having to go this deep.
It was, and I tried to, it's fine. I love doing it. It's fun. All right. We'll talk to y'all Thursday. Y'all have a good week. Appreciate you listening.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.